All right. Well, looks like we've got a ton of people joining right now, so we'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to El Toro in Action, How to Track Retail Success with Precision. We're thrilled to have you here today and have a lot of great content prepared for the presentation. My name is Samantha Stewart, and I am a sales executive here at El Toro. I've been with El Toro for a little over 2 years now. I am joined by our two expert panelists who will be leading us through the webinar. I'll go ahead and let Ryan and Bart introduce themselves. Kick it over to Bart.
Hey, thanks to everyone for joining. My name is Bart Jagatheesan. I've been with El Toro for about 7 years now. I'm a member of our research and analytics team. So I have worked with a lot of retail customers as well as a lot of customers in financial services and things like that. And I'll kick it over to Ryan to introduce himself.
Hey everyone, I'm Ryan Summers. I have the great honor of working with Bart alongside him in the research and analytics team. We get to spend a lot more time working with our data and studying human behavior in that aspect. And I spend a lot of time working with our retail clients as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan and Bart. And everyone, please feel free to submit any questions you have during the webinar through the Q&A forum in the navigation panel. We'll either answer them live at the end of the webinar or right back to you in the chat. The webinar should be around 30 minutes of content. We'll use the last 15 minutes for Q&A. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So just a little refresher and an intro for any of those that may be new to El Toro. El Toro was founded in 2013, and we're a leader in ad tech and advanced analytics. We offer custom digital advertising solutions, allowing our clients to identify and hyper-target their desired audiences on a one-to-one level. And we're doing this 100% cookie-free. We have about 21 patents surrounding our technology, and we ingest trillions of data points each week to help us power our proprietary technology that in turn helps us power the bullseye reports and IP plus targeting. Now we'll kick it over to Bart to briefly discuss our products.
Thanks. So this all started with our core IP targeting technology, which what it does in effect is we take a list of household mailing addresses and we can translate those to a list of IP addresses one for one without the use of cookies. So that's great for in action, in practice. What that looks like is uploading a list of previous customers and then targeting them to try and win back their business. And then that's kind of the core technology. We iterated upon that several times over the years. So I'll talk about a handful of those, like digital canvassing, for instance, is similar to our IP targeting technology. However, what it does a little differently is it that same list of, call it previous customers, that address list, instead of targeting those customers, we look for the neighbors of those customers instead. And then our digital new movers product is where we are looking for folks who have moved into a new home within the last 90 days. And naturally, there's a lot of purchases and spending that happens once you move into a new home. So that product is catered to marketers trying to get in front of those folks who are about to make pretty big purchases. And then our venue replay technology is the way I like to describe it. It's our El Toro's method of targeting folks in the present based on where they've been in the past. And what that allowed us to do was it allowed us to take devices observed out in the wild at different locations of interest, map those devices back to their household, and then allow us to activate marketing to those folks at the device level, at the household level, or at the IP address level. So that offers us great channels for marketing as well as attribution. And then there's a number of other products as well that we're happy to go over with you, but one that I really want to call attention to is our intent to home product in the bottom right of your screen. That's a product that we just launched in the last, call it 3 months or so. And what that product allows you to do is based on users' online intent behavior, there are roughly 20,000 different topics that we have categorized different behavior patterns into. That could be for anything like financial services, home services, car buying, eating at a restaurant, you name it, and we probably have a topic for it. So if you're curious to learn more about that, you can always visit our website, or you can always reach out to your sales rep as well. But we're going to dig a little deeper on these three highlighted products, and I'll turn it over to Ryan to kind of talk about those more in depth.
Awesome. Thanks, Bart. So there's many ways in which we work with retail clients. Typically, I mean, by definition, it usually starts with you have to have some physical locations. So around that, we can start as small as one location and we can scale nationally. But to give an example, let's pretend I am, doing this for I have Ryan's grocery store. It's an individual grocer. You can swap that out for whatever industry you're in. The first thing we're going to want to do, and I love that Bart said, Venue Replay allows us to target and advertise to people in the present based on where they've been in the past. And so on top of everything else you're doing in your marketing mix, one of the first things we're going to want to do is we're going to want to look back a year from today at devices seen at your physical location. And so those in return are your shoppers. We're automatically going to be able to segment these devices out. We're going to see some devices that were only seen once over the entire year. That would be a really light shopper, right? And then we're going to see people almost, once or twice a week, and as far up as employees. We're going to be able to see employee devices showing up a lot. And even, our goal is to save your advertising dollars and make them effective. So often we'll exclude those employees. So on top of your own shoppers, we typically get this one a lot. I need help can we target our competitor shoppers? So for, in the example of Ryan's grocery store, we would be able to pull in other grocers in the same market. And then we would be able to do the same thing. So while we have an idea of who your shoppers are, we're also going to have an idea of competitor shoppers. Now, one of the traditional strategies we undergo when we start out is we've learned through working with several retail clients that your ad dollars are typically more effective in targeting people we see at your locations, and people who are seen at competitor locations with a low frequency. So we might see them across the market visiting other places. It's typically tough for us when we see a device at a competitor location, they're a high frequency shopper at that brand, to really try and get them to convert over to, Ryan's grocery, right? They clearly have buying behavior at another brand. So, but those are things we look at, and we build audiences from that. Lastly is, was someone going to say something?
I was just going to say, if a client's competitor is closing their store, can we target their shoppers? And if so, how would we do that?
That's a good question, and that's one we get quite often. So in the same thing I just mentioned, Ryan Grocery, I know that a Kroger's closing and I want to get some of those customers. Well, it's likely that because we're going to try and target those competitors for Ryan's Grocer, all we would need to know is a little bit of just a warning, hey, this store's closing in the next month. We really want to make sure we do as much as we can to get our branding in front of those customers. So what I would do is I would go in and pull that data, and I would work with the client, but we would probably include those high shoppers, right? Because the brand that they were seen at is no longer going to be there. So we do want to include them this time. And then I'll touch upon digital canvas in a little bit, but that's another thing we'd probably want to do for a store closure is we would digital canvas competitor shoppers. So not only are we going to target people seen at that closing location, but also the neighbors of people we saw at that closing location.
Perfect. Thanks, Ryan.
And then the last one is, and this applies for e-commerce specifically, but we see this as well as in retail, specifically retail and shopping centers. If you're ever a lot of different brands we work with, they have a strong understanding of where their customer comes from or shops at. Other brands that are whether they might not be similar to yours, but there's just a large cross shopping. We see that in shopping centers. So what we'll do is we will often use other locations as a validator as well. It doesn't even need to be someone in your market. If you're a furniture, if you're a furniture company and there is, maybe there's some interior designers we see quite often at Home Depot, or we see some, devices at Home Depot a lot. That could also be used. We could use that Home Depot audience as another validator for people who are in market, for a new home, and they have some furniture, they likely could be buying some furniture, etc. So, a prime example for that one, I have a e-commerce client who is in the sporting goods sector, right? So there's some seasonality to their brand. So we might not only see people at an athletic field, but at a Dick's Sporting Goods, and we'll build an audience for that. We'll continue on next to new movers. So new movers is a product that works extremely well in retail, but it's mainly because the mover itself, that life event, has quite a lot of discretionary spend associated to it. So just across the board, typically on average, when someone moves into a home, and in our new mover data, we get pre-movers, escrow, and new movers. And all we need for that is a zip code or the store location. So for Ryan's Grocery, if I wanted to target everybody within, X miles from Ryan's Grocery Store that are new movers, all we would need is that address of Ryan's Grocery. Not only do we tend to see them have a lot more discretionary spend, but for those who are, and I'll use furniture as another example, I just recently moved into a home, and I know it's like a war in the mailbox when it comes to different brands and it's typically home services, etc., right? But from a retail standpoint, one of the first things we find often is that people will hook their Wi-Fi up before they even, get a mail piece, that volume of mail. So getting in front of these new movers can be extremely valuable, especially for lifetime value. And so what we'll commonly do is I just went through some venue replay where we're going to target, a brand's current customers and their competitor customers, but we also will do new movers on top of that, because we want to make sure that when someone's new to a market area, the quicker we can get a company's brand in front of them, the more likely we can convert them into a long-term customer. We'll continue to the next one. Awesome. So Bart brought this one up earlier, and this is another product specifically with retail customers that we will use often. Sam brought up that if a store closes, we'll traditionally use digital canvas for that. But to just describe digital canvas, and I love this little image our graphic designers made, whatever segment we build, whether you upload a list or we are targeting your current shoppers, if we need to either increase that count or operate off the assumption that socioeconomically and demographically we tend to be like our neighbors, then we can also serve to that audience. I'll use furniture as another example. A lot of retail businesses that are in the home services or anything related to the household. Anytime you've looked outside and you've seen your neighbor, get that desk or something, get delivered off the truck, you might not even be in the market for it, but you find yourself looking those things up. That's kind of what we're getting at with digital canvassing. So we often will target the neighbors of heavy shoppers. So for Ryan's Grocery, my heaviest shopper at Ryan's Grocery has been identified using El Toro's tech. And then we'll additionally add their neighbors in using digital canvassing. So that works great for radius plays. It works great for just really impressing upon and serving ads to a local market.
Right. Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. And I think we're going to move over to Bart now to go over the 3 considerations.
Yeah. So when we're trying to take those audiences or those strategies, there's really 3 key considerations that we want to keep in mind when we're crafting these campaigns. So the first being the audience. So understand, who are we targeting? Are they your previous customers? Are they neighbors of your previous customers? Are they new movers? Could they be competitive shoppers, meaning they're shopping at locations of your competitor. So we need to identify who is our audience first and foremost. The second thing is why are we reaching out to them? What sort of messaging are we delivering to that audience? Is there a new store opening that these folks should know about? Is there a new product that you're releasing that you'd like to get eyeballs on? Or some sort of sale or promotion that happens to be going on? Or is it seasonal, meaning like some sort of holiday or Christmas? And then the last thing that we want to consider is what sort of media mix are we delivering to this audience? Are we going more banner heavy, or are we doing primarily OTT and trying to hit the streaming television a little harder, or is it going to be a mix of all of these in some form? So the main, this mostly boils down to those three questions at the bottom. Who are you targeting? Why are you targeting them? And what are you targeting them with? So long as we want to answer all three of those questions when we're getting started. And as for where we actually serve that media, we have access to roughly 94% of online programmatic inventory through our DSP partners. So typically where you see ads serve is on a lot of the websites that you would typically expect. So your CNN.com, ESPN, Fox News, weather.com, as well as local news as well. And then in terms of media, we have, your standard digital display banner, video, as well as OTT, and we have a lot of great OTT partnerships with the providers like Roku, Hulu, and a lot more.
Mm-hmm. And I know a common question that we get too is if we serve on social media or Facebook. I don't know if you all elaborate on what you think is best within this industry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when it comes to social media or Meta, what we can do is once we have that audience built and we know how it's being created, whether it's a new mover audience, whether it's digital canvassing or something else, once that audience is created, you can simply tell us that, hey, I would like to serve this audience on Facebook. And what we can do is we can upload our audience to Facebook and then share that to your Facebook or, excuse me, Meta Business Manager account. And there you'll be able to see that audience populate in your account, and you'll be able to add that to campaigns and serve directly against it.
Awesome. Thanks, Bart.
So the last thing I'll talk about before I turn it back over to Ryan is what we call our matchback analysis. So at El Toro, by no means do we expect you to take your hard-earned dollars and toss them into a black hole without really understanding, did the advertising work? Did the money I spend actually move the needle somehow? So our matchback analysis is how El Toro proves that what we did had an impact in your bottom line. And the way that works is it's very simple. We take the list of households that we targeted because we map everything to a household address. We take the list of households we targeted and we take a conversion file or a sales file from the customer, and we basically match these up against each other, address for address. Did who we target end up converting? And whether it's 10, 100, or 1,000 conversions, and we can give you your conversion rate per campaign. And if there's any sort of transaction details or revenue figures in that conversion data, we can also provide you a ROAS, or your return on ad spend, letting you know for every dollar that you spent with El Toro, how many dollars did you get back? $5 per dollar spent with El Toro, 10, something like that.
Yeah, we'll also provide, on top of the matchback, which is our goal is to do the matchback, right? We want to, and as quickly as possible. Typically, after about a month, we wouldn't recommend typically running a campaign for less than a month to have some effectiveness, but we'll perform that matchback typically a month, or we'll have a little bit of a halo period, 10 to 15 days post campaign to go through that. On top of that, you'll also get all the standard stuff that you're used to from a metric standpoint, such as impressions, clicks, CTR, anything you would like. Our operations team can handle that.
Exactly.
All right, I'll go into this. This is a case study and this was actually one of my clients. This was a grocery chain. Now they are a national chain, but this specific analysis was performed for just one franchisee owner. We tend to see that a lot with retail. We might get it. A retailer might come through the door through a franchisee or through corporate, but then we typically are working with either, corporate or the individual franchisees themselves because their businesses are different geographically and they all serve a different market. So the real big one in this aspect was to not only increase, store sales, but this company was focused heavily on increasing customers in the door. They really wanted to get their customer count up. It's something they were struggling with. So in order to do that, we used 3 products, and we've kind of already highlighted them, but specifically for this grocer, we first focus heavily on their own customers. I do also want to say first, we can work with anybody from the standpoint of we're always going to build audiences, but not everyone has the same data. This I would say is a grocer that doesn't have the best, resources internally. They're not as robust from their CRM isn't robust, right? So we work hand in hand on not only really building a national audience for them of their shoppers that we're constantly tracking and serving ads to, but we're also serving to their competitors. That's something we did in their own markets. So this client identified what competitor brands to go after. We also did digital canvassing of light competitor shoppers inside 5 miles of a client's store. So for these 31 stores, anyone who's a neighbor of a competitor, a heavy competitor shopper, were served ads. And then lastly, we do new movers. And so we always want to keep that segment running. So for all these 31 stores, they each get their own new mover segment. And then we would serve to those new movers. In between that, there might be some other strategies. We've mentioned 2 today. Say a store closing. If a store closes, a competitor store closes, we have specific strategies we'll roll out for that in the middle of campaigns running. Holidays with grocery, we always would throw in some custom deals and programs as that such. If we can target your grocery shoppers or anyone's retail shoppers, then we can also do an employee recruitment if that's something in the middle of the year. But the main goal when it's all said and done is of the audiences we built and served to, we were able to increase sales growth by 9.1%. We saw these 31 stores saw a 3.6% increase in their customers. And then overall, we had a 12x return on ad spend. And so that's pretty good for a tight grocery. Tends to have a lot tighter margins than the rest of, traditional retail businesses. And so, yeah, if anyone has any questions specific to that, I'd love to go into it more, but I believe Bart might have another case study to go through.
Yes, I do. So this next case study that I'm going to talk about is in the furniture space. So for some background here, this was a customer that had a pretty strong brick and mortar presence and did a lot of business that way, but they knew that their online presence was lacking and wanted to beef up their e-commerce operation. So when we worked with them, we ended up prescribing 3 strategies that we wanted to run with. So we took their current or previous customer list, and we deployed that in an IP targeting campaign, directly targeting their previous customers to try and win back their business. The second solution that we used was our digital canvassing product, where we took that same list of previous customers, we uploaded them to our system, and we got the neighbors of their previous customers. And the third strategy that we used was our digital new movers product, where we were able to find the new movers in the various geos that this brick and mortar furniture store operated in. And we were able to target folks who had just moved into a new home with advertising for furniture to fill out that new home. And across those different initiatives, we ended up averaging about a 4% conversion rate, driving nearly $200 million in returns to the customer. The thing that I would really take away from this is that by no means, if you have a particular customer or initiative that you're trying to hone in on, you don't just need to stick with a single strategy or a single product. Many times, our products are complementary to each other because they address different audiences that you might be going after for the same goal. So, if you have any more questions about that or kind of want to ideate and discuss, your El Toro account reps are always available, as well as folks like Ryan and myself on our research and analytics team. Where there's a plethora of help available at El Toro.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bart and Ryan, for the great content. You guys continue to be such a great resource to our team. And I think it's so great that both case studies can show how multiple products are able to be used together. All right, and I guess we will go ahead and get into the Q&A. Looks like one question that came through is, can you help us advertise for a new store location or build?
Yeah, I can take this one. So I sort of mentioned it during the grocery case study, but yes, absolutely. The only real thing we need to know is it tends to be a timing play. So if let's pretend we're working with a brand who has 10 stores and they know of an 11th store that's one of their stores is going to open. What we'll do is we'll just first need to know when that opening date is. And then sort of leading up to that, we want to know what competitors in that market you're competing with. And so whatever market that new store is going into, we're going to really focus on those competitors who are already shopping at like brands in that new store market, as well as I would recommend some new movers as well. So we're going to want a new store build. Those new movers are still important. We want to drive them to the new store.
Bart, any other comments on that one?
The only thing, yeah, I guess I would just say that when it comes to new movers, Ryan described a great use for that particular product. But I would encourage everyone to kind of think past the standard new mover use cases, which often will be home services, furniture, appliances, things like that, which all make a ton of sense, and it's a super effective product for those things. But I would also encourage you to think beyond those types of products and think when you move, there are a lot of different habits and buying patterns that reset and are rebuilt. So, for instance, when you move to a new house, or especially if you're moving out of state across the country, maybe you need a new bank. So, you want to hit those folks who have just moved into a new home. Maybe they need to start banking locally because they like to go into a branch. Restaurants, same thing. A lot of your eating patterns and eating habits reset when you go out and buy a new house because typically you eat wherever's closest to you a lot of the time. Same thing for grocery and retail as well. Those buying patterns all reset. If I used to live next to a Home Depot, but now Lowe's is right across the street from me, I'm probably just going to go to the Lowe's across the street. So those types of patterns all reset. So new movers is a super versatile audience.
Awesome. Thank you all. Another one we just got is, could you give examples of how to use these products in a B2B setting? We would like to find a way to get more business owners and decision makers into our office furniture showroom.
Yeah, so the the first thing I would recommend with that, and Bart, you could speak to this as well, because I know you've done quite a bit of work with furniture, but this is a strategy we do end up seeing across the board when it comes to finding key decision makers at other businesses. The first thing I want to say is that when it comes to like audience size, just know that when we have to look at a business location and try and determine a key decision maker at it, the first thing is we're going to have to see a device at that location quite often. And so we're automatically going to be making our audience a little bit smaller. So this is a more refined, narrow approach type ask when it comes to, finding a key business decision maker at a business. But we do this quite often as long as we have a list of locations that you're looking for, trying to find those key decision makers at, we can do that. If it's like a C-level executive or one of those, that tends to be a lot harder. We might have to throw in additional locations, such as private airports or FBOs, right? If that's and that would have to have some scale to it, because we might see a device at a location show up, but it's not guaranteed that that person's there every day. So really it's on a ask to ask basis. If this is like a call center and we're doing recruiting in that aspect, that one isn't as hard as if you're trying to find the C-level executive, board across a multitude of companies. I also will say that we do have a minimum, and that's just for privacy reasons, as you can imagine. But we typically have a minimum of 500 records, I believe it is. Anyone can interrupt me if I'm wrong. And as you can imagine why that is, we do a lot of work in politics and other aspects. So you can't just throw two senators in a segment and serve to it, right? Same thing for any business, even if it's retail. So that's a great question.
Bart, any comments or?
The only other thing I would add is that El Toro has access to a lot of great, rich data providers. So there's a chance that we may have in a few different data sets that we have access to. We have Experian, we have Aristotle. There's a few others that we have access to that we can likely pull or search for, likely business owners, likely executives, things of that nature out of that file. So if you have any questions about any of that, or you have an audience or an idea for a campaign, but you're not entirely sure how to execute it, feel free to reach out to your account rep at El Toro, and we'll see what other sorts of data providers that we may be able to get access to, and help you procure that data for a campaign.
Awesome. All right. Looks like the next question is it possible to target vacationers? Our business tends to get a lot out of state foot traffic. Ryan looks excited to answer this one.
Yeah, that's a good one. I deal with this all the time. And I'll use Florida as an example because it tends to be Florida more so than anywhere else. Although I have had some recently in like northern Michigan, right? Like Traverse City area. It gets a heavy summer audience, but most of those people don't live in that part of the United States. So if you have a retail location in a travel destination, what we can do is, just like I said, we're going to look at your location's foot traffic, using our tech. And because we can map a physical device back to its household, we're going to know right away a large, out-of-state visitors. And so we deal with that all the time. Companies will come in, they have advertising strategies for their local market and people who live in the same area as them and shop there. But we will often come in for the ability to target people who travel a far distance and are on vacation or just, visiting, to, be able to serve them ads to visit that location on their next visit.
Absolutely. Bart, you want to chime in on anything on it?
No, I think Ryan covered that one.
Perfect. Looks like another one that we got is our stores in Dallas are struggling. Do you have solutions for entire market areas?
Yeah. I mean, without knowing more about the specifics of this customer, I would say there's a handful of strategies that I think could be applicable right off the bat. I just spoke about new movers and how versatile it is. I think that that would be a super useful product for this use case, as well as our IP targeting and digital canvassing products, depending on how much data the customer has at their disposal. Hopefully you have some customer lists that we can work with, but if not, new movers is always a great option. And then the other one that I would probably throw into the mix here as well is our new intent to home product. So depending on what sort of industry or business that this customer is in, there are likely several intent topics that could be applicable. And we can filter that down to folks that that live in the Dallas metro area.
Awesome. Ryan, any other thoughts?
No, I mean, just to speak to intent kind of a little bit more in depth. A prime example, I just dealt with a large, and while auto isn't necessarily retail, it still kind of is because you have to go to the dealership to buy the car. So with that in mind, there's a topic in our automotive intent, such as Kelley Blue Book. So anybody who is seen at a competitive auto dealer and also shows intent of Kelley Blue Book, meaning they've been browsing that online, is then thrown into an advertising segment. So that I agree with Bart. That's a great idea.
Awesome. So another one we have is, can I target lapsed shoppers?
Yeah, I would say there's a couple ways to do that. The first and likely easiest way to do that is if you have a list of lap shoppers, folks who purchased from you in the past but haven't done business with you in a while, and you have their household address. That's a very, very simple, straightforward campaign that you can launch in the El Toro's platform. And we can help you get that set up if you're new to the platform. And we also have tons of useful videos and documentation that you can also use to learn.
I just want to say real quick on top of what Bart just said, that grocery case study I mentioned, they actually didn't have much lists or anything. So while it is helpful, and it's likely that when if you come to El Toro and we want to work together, you're going to already be doing a lot of things, and you're likely going to already have a lot of data assets, etc. So we'll not only work with those, but if you might not have anything, we've done those at national scale. So that business, that grocer, really relied on us to know, hey, are these shoppers, is our shopper mix people that are new? Are these new shoppers we're seeing a lot? They would have an understanding, but we could really help them solve that.
Perfect. And then I know that we had touched base on competitor targeting a little bit earlier, but one more question that we did have was, how can we acquire competitor shoppers or customers?
Yeah, so I mentioned at the very beginning, typically, and in the research and analytics team, one of the things we are really looking at is we're not just specific to one industry. We're just really studying how human behavior changes across the industries. When it comes to grocery, I'm using grocery as an example. We can target competitor shoppers. We typically want to target competitor shoppers who are not seen very frequent at a competitor, because when we put them in an advertising segment and serve to them, our dollars are going to be able to, the ad dollars are more likely to get them to come to the end location. Whereas if they're a very heavy shopper at one of those competitive locations, it's probably because they have a pretty specific set of buying behavior that no matter what ad we throw in front of them, unless they do something like entirely move, which is why new movers is important, right? It's unlikely we're going to want to recommend a serve to those. We have plenty of clients who do not care. They know we compete with Target, and that is, just using that as an example. But so yes, absolutely, we have a lot of different things for competitors, but the first one is all we need to know is who are you competing with, and send us your store address.
Just as easy as that. Perfect. Bart, anything else on that one? Are you good?
No, I think Ryan covered it.
Perfect. Well, any questions that weren't answered, we'll make sure to connect you with your sales executive to follow up. But that is a wrap for today's webinar. We'll be sending out the presentation deck and a link to the recording and a follow-up email early next week. Please keep an eye out in your inbox for that one. In the meantime, if you have any questions or want any more information, please reach out to your sales executive. Visit eltoro.com/connect or call the number on the screen. You can also use the QR code to scan, and it will take you to our contact page. Thank you again for everyone for attending, and we look forward to working together. Happy Thursday.
Take care.